Welcome to Delaware Tech Online Chem 100 at Stanton Campus. This is a presentation of the policy and expectations for the course. My name is Dr. Marc G. Taylor, and I'll be your instructor. So before we begin, a lot of students have questions about chemistry, taking chemistry, whether it's Chem 100 or Chem 110. Why am I in the chemistry class, besides the obvious reason that you have to be? What are my career goals? What does chemistry have to do with what I want to be? What should I know about chemistry and science before I begin? Well, these four questions really relate to the fact that chemistry is one of the basic sciences. And sciences are built on other sciences. So in order to continue with your career of your chosen profession, you really need to know some basics about math and chemistry and probably biology, maybe even physics, in order to build on that information to study the field that you're actually going to spend your career in. So it's important that you understand these basics. Plus, studying any science teaches you the scientific method and how to think somewhat scientifically, which will also aid you not just in science but in everyday life. The last question here is, do I really need math to do well? Well, you do. You need some math. Most of what's in this course is basic algebra, and you can fix it if it's already a problem for you. It's probably not as bad as you think, and most people are actually better at math than they assume that they are. People use math all the time when they're counting their change, or they're calculating money, or they're looking at scores when they're watching sports. But then when they do science, they forget that they actually know the math already. So if you need help, there are many resources available to you, so please do not panic. And make sure you get that help early, and talk to people that can help you out. And I'll list those resources later. So in this course, Chem 100, we're going to cover 8 chapters, and each of these chapters has a number of different topics within it. The first chapter is a review of matter, just to get you familiarized with how we think about chemicals in chemistry. We're also going to talk about the basics of measurement, not just measurement on paper, but how we actually do it in the lab. And we'll talk about the metric system and a little bit about a related system that scientists around the world use called the SI system, the System International, or the standard system that the whole world uses, that's very closely related to the metric system with only a couple minor differences. Then we're going to talk about probably the driest topics in chemistry. We'll talk about accuracy and precision, 2 words that mean the same thing to a lot of people in everyday life, but they mean very, very different things to a scientist. So please do not confuse these two when we cover that topic. We'll also talk about something that will come up over and over again every time you do a calculation, and that is the concept of significant digits, also known as significant figures, or sig figs for short. This relates to how many digits in a number that you can actually trust, and how you have to round that number, because you can't use all the digits your calculator actually spits out at you after you do a calculation. We'll also talk about density and how to calculate it, and a very related term, specific gravity. Then we're going to move to real chemistry. We'll talk about atoms, molecules, the things that chemicals are made of, and how they're bonded together. And then we'll talk about how to name these compounds. And there are sets of rules to learn. There are two major sets of rules. One for a group of compounds called ionic compounds, compounds made of charged particles called ions, and covalent, otherwise known as molecular compounds, true molecules that are separate compounds, and we'll talk about how to name those as well. We'll also introduce you to some organic molecules. These are carbon-based molecules that are also covalent compounds. They're one type of covalent compound. If they have carbon in it, we call them organic molecules, and we'll talk about a subset of organic molecules called biochemicals. These are the major chemicals that make up life, and most of these are carbon-based and therefore organic molecules as well. We'll then talk about chemical quantities and chemical reactions. We have ways of counting up all the atoms and molecules and ions that we're dealing with in chemistry. These particles are incredibly small, so we have a way of counting them that uses very, very large numbers, but we don't call them large numbers, we call them a mole. And a mole is just a large number, just like The word 100 means 100, and the word million means 1 with 6 zeros. The word mole is just a really, really large number that is convenient for us to count things with because these particles are so small and we always have lots of them. We'll talk about the 6 major categories of chemical reactions and how to recognize those. Then we're going to talk about gases, liquids, and solids, the differences between them. We'll spend a bit of time on gases and the behavior of gases and the properties of gases. And then we'll talk about what holds liquids and solids together, the kinds of interactions called IMFs, intermolecular forces, and we'll talk about how heat is transferred. Then we'll talk about solutions. These are mixtures of substances that are very well mixed, but other related mixtures that are not quite as well mixed called colloids and suspensions. And then finally, we'll end with a chapter on acids, bases, and what are called buffers. These are solutions that maintain a fairly constant pH, or in other words, a constant level of acid in them, and they're useful in laboratory experiments. So, a little bit about me. I have a bachelor's in science and in biology from MIT. I had a strong concentration in organic chemistry. Well, that was my original plan, but then I learned about biochemistry and got my Ph.D. in biological chemistry from the University of Michigan, and followed that up with a postdoc at Berkeley, working on binding proteins, specifically antibodies as they bind to proteins, and that led me to a career in medical and molecular diagnostics. These are blood tests or DNA tests or protein tests that are related to diseases, and many of these, especially the protein tests, are based on using antibodies that I had learned about previously. This also led me to study certain topics of bio-nanotechnology, such as microarrays and microfluidics. If you're ever interested in those, you can ask me about it. Now I do some scientific consulting, as well as teaching at Deltech and tutoring both with Deltech and privately. So, the course. In this course, we have lectures and we have labs. And the lectures are in the form of online asynchronous video lectures. These are all posted on D2L. Asynchronous, if you don't know what this means, it means not in time with me making the videos. In other words, synchronous lectures would be you log on at a very specific time and you listen to me talk and I record it and then I post the recordings. Asynchronous means I recorded them in advance and you listen to them whenever you can. They're all posted. Now, when you go to the lectures on D2L, these are all in topic-based modules. So every chapter has a list of modules in order that you would go through them. Now, you may notice that I mention in the first couple words of each unit, of each module, that I mentioned that these are part of Unit 1 or Unit 2 or whatever. Please disregard the units. These were designed for a different version of Chem 100. The Stanton version orders them in a different order, so they're just placed in order. They're in the correct order now. And if you look at the slide presentations, they're in the correct order for doing your work. So just disregard me saying this is part of Unit 1 or continued from Unit 3 or whatever. Okay, the textbook, you need to buy the textbook. This is also from the Deltech bookstore. You can go on site to the Stanton bookstore if it's open, or you can go to the website and get it. You also need a lab manual that you have to purchase there. And here is the website for purchasing either one of those if you can't go physically. For the labs, in addition to the labs in the lab manual, which you will actually fill out in your lab book, we also have some associated video links that you might look up and do. This is not going to be true for all the labs, but it might come up occasionally, and I'll let you know when that is. So, assistance from me. I have office hours Monday and Wednesday from 9 to 11 a.m. I will open up the Zoom link shown here at 9, maybe a couple minutes before, and please log in on time if you can, but if you can't, that's fine. I'll keep it open till 11 a.m. Otherwise, I am available at the Virtual Tutoring Center at a different Zoom address shown here. You can check with the tutoring for my hours. I will let you know my hours. My hours will be changed when this course starts because I've added this course, and because I'm an adjunct instructor, not full-time, I had to limit my number of hours in order to teach this course, so I'm still waiting to find out what those hours are. But there are plenty of other tutors available, not just for chemistry, but for math and other sciences, and even writing. If you need to use them, please take advantage of it. They're very good, and it's very useful. They're open from Monday to Thursday, definitely from 9 to 6, 9 to 5, occasionally till 6, and I believe they're open for some courses on Friday. But again, you'll have to check the schedule. I am personally available in addition to these times by Zoom at the office hours Zoom link at the top here. And just send me an email to my Deltec email address, and we'll set up an appointment to meet, and you'll just log in to that address. I'm also providing my personal email. Please do not use this as your first form of communication. I'm making this available because if you email me and I'm not at my computer, I have to respond from my cell phone, and I can't send back from my Deltec email. I have to use my Gmail account. But I will copy the Deltec. Make sure you copy both if you respond again. I'm also including my cell phone number. Please only use this for emergencies in times when you know that you won't be able to reach me in time with my email and you need to reach me right away. Also, if I call you from this from this cell phone, you'll notice it's a Los Angeles area code. I used to live in LA. I did not live in Beverly Hills. I live 5 miles south of there, but caller ID will say Beverly Hills. So please answer the phone if you see me calling. Okay, required materials for this course. You will need the textbook and you will need the lab manual. The textbook and manual, as I mentioned, are both available from the Stanton bookstore or online. In addition, you will need to watch 2 videos on laboratory safety training. These are absolutely mandatory, even though we're not physically in the lab. So I have the links here. The first one is a 35-minute video made in 1991, so it's a bit dated, by the American Chemical Society, but it has, while it's quite dated and a little hokey at times, it has a lot of good safety information you will need to know for the safety quiz, as well as actually working in a lab one day. Also, there is a 5-minute video produced by Winnie Cheung. Winnie runs the labs at the Stanton campus, the chemistry labs, and she made a 5-minute video walking you through the labs, showing you where all the equipment is, especially the safety equipment, so you will need to know that in order to complete your safety lab. You will need a scientific calculator. What is a scientific calculator? It's a calculator that has functions beyond plus, minus, divide, and multiply. For your purposes, what that means is a scientific calculator that has scientific notation on it. How do you know what that is? It's the EE button, or occasionally it's an EXP button. Never use the times symbol for scientific notation to actually input scientific notation on your calculator, and don't use, that should say 10 to the x, 10 raised to the x power, not 10x. There's a button that says 10 to the x power. Don't ever use this for scientific notation. While it might give you the correct answer sometimes, it will not give it to you all the time, and I want you to avoid making those mistakes. So please, please, please learn how to use your own calculator. Learn how to use the EE button or EXP button. EE stands for enter exponent. In other words, enter the power of 10 in your scientific notation. In the module entitled Scientific Notation and Use of Your Calculator, I explain how to use that for most calculators. If we were on campus, you would need what we call personal protective equipment, PPE. You may have heard this in the news recently. And that would require you to purchase a lab coat and goggles. These are safety-rated goggles that the school has at the bookstore before entering the lab. Now, since we're not in the lab physically, you don't need to buy those just yet, but you do need to know what is appropriate garb of clothing in the lab, especially for the safety quiz. You should know there are 4 things you need to always have when you go into the lab. Long pants or a long skirt, shorts are not allowed, and no hoods. A lab coat, and this is a long, heavy-duty lab coat, a safety lab coat, not a shorty lab coat that you might see in the cosmetics department of Macy's, for instance. It has to be a real lab coat. And safety goggles that are approved for this course. These have side shields on them, so they're snug against your face and prevent splashing on at any angle to your eyes. And the fourth thing is you need closed-toe shoes. No Crocs, no open-toe shoes, no open-heeled shoes. They have to completely cover your foot. And so make sure you have that if you ever enter a lab. Without any of this personal protective equipment, if you're missing even one of these items, you'll be removed from the lab and unfortunately will receive a 0 grade for that lab. So you want to avoid that when we're physically in the lab. Also, before doing any experiments, you will have to sign a safety statement sheet that basically says you understand all the safety rules that you learned about in the 2 safety videos. Okay, where do you find everything? Well, everything you're going to find is, almost everything is going to be on D2L. And D2L, when you enter the main page of D2L, you're going to see a number of headings at the top bar of the first page. And the first heading will say Content. And under Content, there are 2 items, Getting Started and Learning Materials. In the Getting Started, you will find this policy, a copy of this as well as the video that I'm making right this second. You also find a full schedule with all due dates to all assignments. That's the labs, the quizzes, any reports, and the exams and the final. I also have on that schedule on the right a list by date, what is coming up when, so you can see it at a glance. So I would recommend you print one of these out and have it available, but check to make sure I don't put a new version of the schedule online so that that has updated dates in case anything happens in the course. I will put a version number to let you know that it's changed, and I'll probably send you an email as well. Course syllabus. This is just a list of topics that are covered in 110 if you want to take a look at it. The Zoom links that I already showed you are on there in the Getting Started pages as well, and there's a short bio about me, but you've already seen that, so there's not much new there. It also has my contact information. The second part of content is a much larger section called Learning Materials, and there are a number of items in here. There are all the lectures for the course. These are individual modules based on topic, and they are grouped by chapter in order on D2L in the lecture section. In addition to all the videos, I have the same set of material in PowerPoint slide and PDF format also available. The PDF is there especially for either Mac users or tablet users that have trouble with PC versions of PowerPoint. They may be updated, so look for version numbers there, but they should be good for the whole semester. Reference handouts. These are important. I recommend you print out the full set right away and have them ready to use. They're a little over 20 pages long, and I have both a black and white and color version. If you have a color printer, I recommend the color version, but they have exactly the same information on them. These are going to be a lifeline for you throughout the semester. Practice exams. Practice exams with answers will be provided. These are good study guides, but there may be problem types that are not on the practice exams, because the practice exams are printable. The actual exams will be electronic versions on D2L, so they're not exactly the same format, and there might be some topics not covered, but they're excellent study guides nonetheless. Okay, after content, there's an item listed in the menu called activities, and there are 2 main items in activities: quizzes and assignments. There are other items listed there, but those are the 2 you're going to be using a lot. Quizzes is the location of all exams, quizzes, and finals. So quiz means any kind of test. So make sure you know it's there. And all of the quizzes and exams and the final will be available to you for periods of time ranging from 4 to 8 days. The quizzes will be the shorter range. All of the tests will be between 6 and 8 days long that you can take them during that period. But once they're done, once that period's over, it's closed, so you want to make sure you keep up with the schedule. The exams should be taken in order. They have to be taken in order. If there's a problem with that, please contact me and we'll talk about it. The other item in activities is assignments. This is not going to be for you to get anything. This is where you're going to submit all your completed lab reports. Lab reports will be done in your lab book. You will scan the pages of your handwritten work in the lab book, and you don't need to scan the whole lab. just the part of the lab that has your written answers in it. And then you're going to submit it as a single scanned document into assignments under the correct lab heading. And there are 10 different headings. Actually, there are 9 different headings. Your policy quiz, the quiz on this presentation, will count as one of your lab grades. In addition, you'll have 8 actual labs that you'll be doing. These are all on paper, obviously, since you're not physically in the lab. And you will also have a report called the element report. This is a report where you're going to pick any element on the periodic table and write a report about it, and I'll provide you what I'm looking for in that report. And the last item in the menu that you need to be familiar with is grades, and this is where you can find your overall grade, but it's also where you can find the breakdown of your lecture grade. Lecture means just the exams and quizzes and final, and the lab grade means just lab. And you need to have a passing grade in all 3 of these items, the lecture part, the lab part, and the overall part, in order to pass the course. It doesn't matter how good you do in lecture, in the exams, which is the lecture. If you fail the lab, I am forced to fail you for the whole semester. That is department policy throughout all of Deltex. The grades will be available to you fairly quickly. I try to keep up with the grading within a couple days, but give me a week before you send me a letter and say, hey, you didn't get my submission. What's going on? Please grade it, and just let me know, because sometimes things fall through the cracks. Okay, how do you determine your letter grade? Well, like all courses at Deltec, you need a 75% to complete it. And in this course, you need to pass all measurable performance objectives. That's the phrase used. It basically means you need to get 75 in everything. So 75 to 82 is a C. Below 75 is failing. Since we round up, technically a 74.5 would pass, but anything less than a 74.5, 74.49 is not passing. 74.50 and up is passing. Above an 83 is a B, above a 92 is an A, and I believe this is the same for the whole college. Now, as I mentioned already, there are 2 components to this course. The lecture component, which is your exams, which is 70 of the 75% of your lecture component. And the quizzes, which will be 5% of the lecture, of the lecture component. So remember, exams are very heavily weighted. You have 8 exams and a final. The quizzes, there are going to be 2 to 4 quizzes that will be graded. There's one quiz that's posted that's completely optional. It's there to prepare you for the first exam. The laboratory component is worth 25% of your total grade. So let's break this down. The lecture component, which is 75%, 70% of that is from the exams. There are 8 mandatory unit exams. You'll typically have 6 to 8 days to finish each one. You can use a scientific calculator and whatever handouts I specifically allow. This will usually be a periodic table and maybe one other, maybe for 0 to 2 other handouts. It depends on the material. No other resources can be used while you're taking the test. No other websites. You cannot use any other website. And I will tell you now, I build in what I call, I build in questions where I can tell that you've looked things up online. So please do not do that, because if you do that, and I realize that you've used the online sources during an exam, there are consequences. So no other handouts, no textbooks, no notes, no other websites, no help from another human being while you're taking that test. You can get all the help you want from me before or after the exam, but not during the exam. You are not permitted to discuss any aspects of any exam with anyone until everyone has completed that exam. So please do not talk with other people about it. So if any of these are violated, an academic misconduct report will be filed with the dean's office. This goes to the assistant dean, and they will make an evaluation, and this can take all semester to be decided. So you really want to avoid that. The final is comprehensive and optional. So of the 8 exams plus the final, you actually can drop 1 grade. So the final will replace your lowest exam grade. If you already have an A going into the final, you don't need to take the final. Otherwise, you can take it. And other teachers have different rules, but my rule is I will, while it says here officially, it will replace the lowest grade. What happens if your final is your lowest grade? Well, I will not let the final hurt you. So what I'll do is I'll look at the 9 exams and take the 8 best exams. So it won't hurt you to take the final. So if you want to take it seriously, but it can't hurt you. Quizzes have all the same rules as the exams and the final that I just stated about what you can use and what you can't use. Many of the quizzes are timed, some of them are not. Policy and ethics quiz is absolutely mandatory, so is the safety quiz for that matter. The quizzes are in the assignments section. The quizzes are in they're in the activities section. Let's say activities. My apology. On D2L. I already mentioned that on a previous slide. And you will typically have about 4, 5, sometimes as much as 7 days. The first couple, I think I gave you 7 or 8 days to do. But most of the quizzes are about 4 days or more to complete. So make sure you keep on the schedule about what is up at what time. Laboratory component. This is 25% of your grade. Oh, and I forgot to mention the quizzes are only worth 5% of your grade. Okay, laboratory component is worth 25% of your grade. All the lab reports are mandatory in order to complete the class. But that said, we do drop the lowest lab grade, except for the lab grade that is from your policy quiz, which we actually count as a lab grade, and the safety lab, we can't drop those. But any one of the other labs, including the last one, can be dropped. All right, so if there are video links available, you'll use the video links. Otherwise, you'll read the labs in your lab manual. Please read the questions carefully. You're going to write your answers in the manual, scan the pages, make sure the scans are upright. I don't want to see any submissions that are sideways. These are very hard to read, even when you download them. They're very difficult to read on the computer screen, so please make sure they're upright so I can read them and grade them. And don't send them to me by email unless there are problems with submission to assignments, but otherwise you'll submit them to assignments on D2L. You can use any resource you want to complete the lab. You can use textbooks, the notes, look things up on the internet, and some things you will have to look up on the internet, or you can ask me or one of the tutors. But that said, you have to do your work independently. You can discuss ideas for solving a problem with another student, but the work must be your own. So if you're doing a calculation, somebody says, oh, you have to multiply these two numbers or this times this, but you can't give the answer to somebody and you can't get that answer directly from somebody. If there's a written answer, you have to come up with that on your own. It has to be in your own words, but you can discuss how to solve problems. That's fine to work together on these, but it shouldn't look like you're copying from each other. If you do that, we have an academic violation, and again, a report to the dean's office will happen. So please, please, please don't do this. Every semester, I catch multiple people doing this, either with the tests or with the labs. So please, please, you want to avoid this. It is better to get a failing grade than to get an academic misconduct, believe me. All right, lab reports are all have due dates. They're on the schedule. If they're late, I'll still accept them for at least a week. Talk to me if it's more than that, but you might be penalized as much as 5% per day. Missed labs will get a 0 grade, obviously. Your lowest lab will be dropped, except the mandatory safety lab and the policy quiz, the quiz on this material, which counts as a lab. I can't drop those two. Now, that said, if you miss any three labs, doesn't matter which ones, for the course, you will get an automatic failure. This is department policy, and in fact, it's campus-wide policy, depending on which semester, that if you miss 2 to 3 labs, you automatically fail the course. So please do not miss multiple labs. The only reason why it's up to 3 in this case is because you can drop one of your labs. It's really only 2 labs missed in addition to the dropped grade. So let's discuss withdrawal from the class. If you need to withdraw, there are two options. One is the correct option and one is the one you want to avoid. The correct option is the official withdrawal, and this would be marked in records with a W. So if you were to drop before the drop date for this course, which is Wednesday, July 29th, no harm, no foul. You won't, a grade won't appear. You won't get a failing grade. It just won't appear, and it won't affect your GPA, and there will be no problem. However, if you go the other route, which is to unofficially withdraw, in other words, what we call ghosting the class, if you just decide to stop watching the videos, stop doing your homework, stop doing the labs, stop taking exams, in other words, you just stop attending to all the parts of the course, and it results in a failure, which it inevitably would, this results in a U grade, and a U is to be avoided at all costs. Because a U will affect your GPA, obviously, with a failing grade, but it will also affect your financial status, as you will have to pay back your financial aid if you get a U. So please do not do this. If you know you're going to drop, please do it before the drop date. If you're unsure of your grades, you can always check your grade. You can talk to me about what kind of grade you need to get on the next assignment in order to get yourself into a passing position, but make sure you don't do a U. Okay, so policies. Attendance to the office hours. This is obviously optional, but for the first meeting, I want everybody to attend, and I'll send out an email about that, but every other session, it's completely optional to join. So the office hours are Monday and Wednesday, 9 to 11. There's another class there at the same time, but only 1 to 2 people, 0 to 2 people show up for that. So if you have any questions, this is the time to ask it. I will try to keep the Zoom hours, office hours open a little bit before, so you can just log in. You are responsible for viewing all the online videos. Please watch all of them, preferably in order. It's your responsibility to find out what you've missed, and it's your responsibility to make up all work by the appropriate due dates. If that's a problem, just contact me and we'll talk about the options. Class time consideration. Class time meaning office hours. So if you do log on to Zoom and it's very loud in your background, just be mindful of it and mute your system so that the other people involved in listening to the session won't be disturbed by it. Feel free to take breaks. You're adults. Everybody will be treated as an adult, so if you need to walk away from the computer during a Zoom session, that's fine. If you want, and everybody needs to take a break, and there are a lot of people, we can take a 5-minute break, and everybody can do what they need to do, and that's fine. Okay, missed exams. Since the exams are open for 6 to 8 days for all of the exams, we typically don't offer retakes for the exam. That is no second try ever. But even missed exams, we don't often allow you to retake the same or take the same exam that you may have missed, unless there's a compelling reason for a long-term absence, like you had a long-term family emergency, prolonged illness or injury. But that said, be aware that you may need to provide some kind of documentation for the absence. That might be in the form of a doctor's note, for instance. In this case, the missed exam still has to be taken before the next exam is taken. If you know in advance that you're not going to be able to make it during that period, let me know. I'll open up the exam early and you can take it then. Otherwise, the final will replace your missing grade. Remember, I keep the 8 best of the 9 exams, so that can always be your backup, but the final is cumulative, so students find it a bit tougher. So be aware of that. Exams that have not been completed will obviously get a 0. There's not a lot I can do about that, but again, that will be replaced by the final. To maintain academic integrity, if for some reason I give you a new exam, I might modify it, I might change or even remove the extra credit questions. If you are a veteran or active duty, just send me an email. Let me know. I'm a vet retired from the Air Force. I am active duty in the Army. That's all you have to do. That is so that I can keep records that are required by the Veterans Affairs Office. Accommodations. If you need any kind of accommodation, whether it's due to some kind of disability or alternate ability, or you have a hearing problem. I have a hearing problem. I have hearing aids, but I don't usually wear them because they're not very helpful. But if you have a hearing problem, you have a vision problem, you have a reading issue, for whatever reason, please go and talk to Dr. Heather Statler. Here's her email, and she can arrange an accommodation to help you. This might come in the form of extra time during exams, and I'm happy to help. It's very easy to set up if that's all that needs to be done. Also, you should be aware that all of the videos that are posted have closed captions. They're not perfect, but they can give you a very good idea of what I'm saying. Occasionally, a scientific word won't be captioned correctly, but it's pretty good information. Academic honesty. I've already talked about this a few times. Dishonesty will not be tolerated. We have a large DTCC student handbook that has a lot of different policies in it, and the link here is shown. You can always look up the portion about taking exams and what is required and what is allowed and what is not allowed. If you have any questions about the policy or you're not sure about a certain situation, talk to me in advance. Don't wait until I've already been forced to write an academic dishonesty report. Remember, I have to write a report in many cases whether I know for sure that you've done anything or not. You may even be just present at somebody else doing something, and I am required to include you in the report. So please, you want to avoid that. These reports can take as much as 2 or 3 months to resolve, and during that period, you are not allowed to drop the course, and your grade is up in the air waiting for a decision to be made. And that is because the dean has a lot of other things to deal with, and they can't necessarily get to this report right away and make a decision, even if it's in your favor. So please, please, please avoid even the appearance of impropriety when it comes to academic honesty. So, participation, participation, participation. This shows me what you know, it shows me what you don't know, and it shows me what's on your mind. Well, in an online course, this is a little harder, but if you tell me what you're having problems with, if you come to the office hours, if you come to the tutoring session, if you email me, I have an idea and I can help you. But if you wait until it's too late, there's nothing I can do. So I will do everything in my power to help you if you need help. But you have to ask for it. You are not the only one who doesn't understand this material. It's going to be coming very fast, especially in a very accelerated course. This course, being 7 weeks, is more than twice as fast as the usual course. So it is incredibly challenging. Be aware of that. Questions and answers are always encouraged. So if you have a question, ask me the question. Remember, you're not the only one who doesn't know it. Don't be embarrassed about asking the question. Giving me an answer if I ask you a question also is encouraged. It's okay to be wrong. Everybody's wrong at some point. Everybody's wrong at a lot of points. I'm wrong at a lot of points. I've already made mistakes in this presentation. So please, 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 don't be afraid to answer questions or try. It's better that you try and get it wrong than not try at all. If I have you in a session, a Zoom, or even in person, I might ask you to go through a problem. But here's my promise to you. I will never abandon you when you're asked to solve a problem. So don't panic. Take a deep breath, and I will walk you through the problems you're struggling with. It's good practice, and the worst that will happen is you learn something, at least a little bit more than before you started. So, concluding comments. Yes, it's overwhelming, especially for an accelerated course. Everything's on D2L. Start with the welcome letter. It tells you not only where everything is, but the beginning of the welcome letter tells you what to do first, in order. So please, please, please read the welcome letter. It's right there. It's actually not in the overview. It's right there in the beginning of the getting started. You'll see it the second you open up the content page, the page, the D2L page for the course. It'll be there. Just open it up and read that letter. It's long, but it's got lots of good reference information, what to do first, and then where to find everything that I've already described here. The full schedule is in D2L. That's a good thing to get right away. It has all the due dates. I'm going to push you to learn this material, but you're going to have to push yourself because it's so fast. The internet can be your friend, so you can use my videos. You can use other people's videos that are online. You can use YouTube. YouTube is a world of help for a lot of these topics that maybe you're not getting even after looking at my videos or my slides or the textbook or the labs. There's a lot of information available to you. Of course, you can't use the internet while you're taking a test, a quiz, or the final. If there's anything else that pertains to your success, please do not hesitate to talk with me. Send me an email. We'll talk about it. Come to the Zoom session. We'll talk about it. Come to tutorials. Don't wait until you're already failing to suddenly say, oh, I need help with this. I've never understood any of this material. I'll go out of my way to help you. I'll do whatever I can to help you, but you have to make the effort for yourself. And asking is always a good strategy for success. Asking for help first before I come to you and say, hey, you're having trouble with this, you're struggling with this, maybe you should look into it. You should be aware of where you're at, so keep mindful of it, especially in this fast-paced course. So get involved, participate, participate, participate. It's your future you're working towards, and I am your guide. So good luck to all of you, and I hope you do well.